Hi, welcome back to another episode of GapCast. I'm Debbie Foreman, your host. And if you've been with us before, you know that the only thing I ever talk about are gaps, the systemic world of gaps. Sometimes I react to famous people doing podcasts and content regarding and mentions of gaps. Sometimes I do lessons, and sometimes I actually come in with a new concept. Well, what do I want to talk about today? In the world of gaps, I want to talk about the world of networking. Networking. Because inside networking, gaps are constantly present and people don't think about it. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey, which is the power of networking, why networking is important. What is networking? Maybe we'll start there and show you through the journey what gaps are, how they're associated, the problems that most people face through the world of networking, and the opportunity to close it. And there's a reason I'm actually doing this. So before I started, I just pulled this up. I was like, how do we define the word networking? I've got different ways and different definitions. I'm going to show you that. We're going to start with the easiest part, which is the sharing my screen and just going through definitions. All right, here we go. What is networking? And let's read this together. Networking has two main meanings: building professional relationships or to share work information, and the other is and linking computers together so they can share data. I am talking today about definition number one: professional and business networking. And I got this off of the Gemini on Google. The meaning: meeting people, making contacts, and building work or social ties. Well, that's what networking is for business. The goal is to find jobs, share ideas, learn industry news, and grow a business. Very well said. Where is this done? Through conferences, trade shows, alumni meetings, or online sites like LinkedIn? Well, it's also done through, and I'm going to say this, chambers of commerce. Okay, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute. So back in about 2014, while I was still working in Brazil, our operations were headquartered there. We worked on a really big project called network monetization, or monetizing networks. And I've got the screen pulled up for you because if you go to networking events, if you belong to a chamber of commerce, if you go to business development, if you go to different events, networking events that you might see on Eventbrite or other platforms, your intent is exactly what they said. Your intent is to strengthen the network, to find opportunities, and to close them. And a lot of people always come back and say, "Oh, I belong to all these or I've gone to all these networking events, or I belong to these different organizations," but they don't convert. Okay, and I want to talk about this a little bit better. Okay, so this is a sensitive topic, yet it can be very, very liberating and very profitable. Okay, so networking is based on perception. And from that perception, it moves into conversion. But if that first perception is not aligned, if there's not a match, then the next step, the conversion, isn't going to happen. And why is it hard for a lot of people to convert through their networking? These are the most common barriers, and I want to read through them with you. You feel awkward about offering opportunities in exchange for money. So a lot of people go through the pitch process. Oh, I'm going to learn to pitch. I'm going to learn to say what I have to say. I'm going to get in front of a mic or do a speed pitch or spend a couple of minutes. But there's a gap that happens because they feel awkward. And so what is the perception inside that network? That perception is, oh, that person might have something good, but they're awkward. They're awkward not because they don't know what they do, but they're feeling awkward because they're uncomfortable about talking about money, talking about the exchange of profession for money. It's easier to come up with like a proposal, or if you have a business or a restaurant or a commerce or something like that, just wait for the consumer to come in and buy what you have and charge them, at the counter at the payout. But networking really starts with dropping. The success of networking really begins by dropping the awkwardness. Awkwardness is a gap. It's a gap, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, number two, do you feel that monetizing your network is the same as off the books money? Well, I mean, like, it's not a formal offer, or I met somebody there and they asked me how much something's going to cost, and I feel that it might be like they're trying to get something from me, and I'm not might be formalized. And a lot of people feel that it's like dirty business because of the awkwardness that they have. So they carry that awkwardness from 1 to 2. Number 3, is it more comfortable to approach than to take the initiative? Or I'm actually saying to be approached. That's written wrong. Is it more comfortable? So you wait for somebody to come to you and say, hey, tell me what you do, how you do it, and how you charge for it. Because that same problem, it goes back to the gap, that awkwardness, the awkwardness of doing business in an informal setting, and to be able to establish yourself. And you go, well, you know what? I'm just going to wait for people to come up to me instead of me going up to them because I still feel awkward. So on this website, somehow this 4 and 5 turned into the same column. So we're going to talk about 4 and 5 being the same. Okay? Are you afraid your network will think you're desperate or opportunistic? The hard word for me today. So a lot of people have this feeling like, oh, if I talk about who I am, if I show that I want more, it's going to come across as a perception of need or as desperation. Why? Because of the awkwardness. The awkwardness. The gap always starts with the awkwardness. So people have this feeling like, oh, if I don't show them that I need more, then, everything's okay. Or maybe they think I'm just desperate and that's the only reason I'm here. Well, that means that there's a gap in your perception and your value of what you have to bring to the table. But it happens so much. You will see people at networking events, they'll give their card, wait for you to go onto their site to see if they're going to make contact because they're awkward about how they present themselves in opportunities in informal settings. Would you like to monetize your network but don't know what to offer? Well, a lot of times, if you have a restaurant where you're going to offer, come to my restaurant. But let's say you have a business that's service orientated and you're meeting somebody for the first time and your service is more, multi-stakeholder. How do you actually put in that offer? And they get worried about, I don't know how to monetize it because what I do is complex, or maybe you're an engineer that does big buildings. It doesn't really matter. And most people don't understand that monetizing a network is not the offer necessarily of your final delivery. It's the offer of what you bring as value, a perceived value to the table. Trust, opportunity, growth, the ability to bring change, peace, to solve a problem or a puzzle that's been there for a long time. So sometimes when people say, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm Debbie Foreman. What do you do? And that's where people blow it. They say, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm a consultant. That's not what that monetization part looks like. They're asking what you do. I fix problems, all sorts of problems. And I'm really good at fixing problems. So if you've got a problem that's based on stagnation, qualification, competition, or results, come to me. I'll help you out. Yes, and I charge for that. Well, what if you want to monetize your network, create offers, and learn how to approach them? This is where I started in 2014 on monetizing networks, okay? But to do that, we had to go back to origin. And the origin is, how do we get past that awkwardness? How do you get past the awkwardness inside of an informal networking system? Is the awkwardness because it's hard for you to speak in public? Is that awkwardness because you don't know how you're going to be perceived and you're afraid to be perceived as desperate? Is that awkwardness because what you do is complex and you always talk about who you are and what you do, and what you do, you say, I am and you turn yourself into a commodity and not into a prized value or a glorified action? Or is it hard because you don't know how to put value and pricing into a conversation that may last only 1 or 2 minutes? So now I'm going to move really quickly on to the world of gaps, because when people say, well, what are the gaps? How do you solve gaps? How do you fix gaps? Why are gaps a problem? I'm going to talk about this. So we were talking about the awkwardness. First of all, let's go back. Networking, the very, very, God, I'm having a hard time today. Let's go back and let's talk about the power of networking. It's a very, very powerful, I'm going to call it like an asset that we have, in-person networking. As we move more and more into the digital world, a lot of times we're more and more awkward with our ability to be with people, to communicate effectively, to transmit messages, and to be very precise. And we carry that awkwardness into the networking scenario. And when we carry that in, those perceptions, a lot of times it's more of a fear factor inside somebody's head of how they're going to be perceived. And because of that, that awkwardness turns into an inefficient method. And it creates a gap between the reason you're at the network and what you actually want to get out of it. So here, all I want to do is talk a little bit about what are gaps, and what is my world of gaps? A gap is the distance. You all know that. A gap is a space, right? What you perceive and what you know. So if you perceive that people are going to see you desperate, what you know then in your mind is that you've just created desperation. There you go. And that way, that gap is there. You're not going to fulfill the opportunity. What you intend and what you achieve. Networking, what do you intend? You intend to build relationships, opportunities, and to convert them. But what if they don't convert? Is that because that perception, that awkwardness, that perception is there? The skills you possess and lack. Well, networking is a skill. You might be an engineer, you might be a doctor, you might be a consultant, a plumber, a fireman. It doesn't really matter. Those are the hard skills that you possess to be able to deploy what you've sold. But many times we're just lacking the skills to be able to network and to make money from the network. And it almost always goes back to the perception and feeling awkward. The effort you give and the results you get. Well, this is where the big part comes in. The effort you give. If you do not apply the effort, if you do not put effort into overcoming that gap, you're not going to get the results that you want. You will not. It just isn't going to happen. So the first part of this is identifying what is the gap that's keeping you from converting your network into business opportunities. And if you take a deep look inside, how much do you want to bet? It's that awkwardness. I don't know how to present myself. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to sell it. What if people think I'm desperate? What if people think I'm, trying to do side business? That's what comes out. Once you put in the effort, once you're able to identify where that gap is, there's framework, there's process, the ability to get past it, and you're going to get the results that you want. But here we go. So I'm going to ask you really carefully to just pay attention really quick. You go to networking events, you want to go to networking events, you want to make the most of networking events, you want to produce at networking events, you want to convert at networking events, you want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be known, you want to be hired, and you want to grow. That's why you're there. But you feel awkward. That perception happens all the time. I'm going to ask you very carefully to look at this. Where would you pinpoint your problem right now? Stagnation, qualification, competition, or results? As far as your networking skills go. Are you stuck and you don't know how to build those networking skills? Do you feel like you're not qualified to network? You're not qualified to be able to transmit and change that perception? Do you feel like when you go to a networking event, there's competitors all around you? I see it all the time with lawyers and with the financial market. There might be 20 people offering the same service or the same product. And so that competition means that they've got to have the qualification to overcome that awkwardness and to be perceived as a value more than the product that they're actually selling. They themselves, you must be perceived as a value, regardless of the product you're selling. Because if you get past these three, those results will come. I'm telling you, it happens all the time. The reason I'm bringing this up is the following. I am making an announcement. I am very proud to announce that I just became one of the newest members of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. It was a decision because my logistics are hard and the power of in-person networking is fantastic, but it means that I have to be there and to get there in person. So this is what I have to say. It's an honor for me, first of all, to be at the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I'm very grateful to be in there. I had to close another gap, which was to be able to create the time and the space, because time and space can cause huge gaps. I need to have the time, it's across town, the space to be in the logistical part, to be able to do what I do, to be able to help people close the gaps. And nothing more important, if you're seeing this from another part of the US or around the world, is, oh my goodness, I go to networking events, I belong to networks, and I just don't get what I want out of them. That's my world. That's the world of gaps. And gaps happen everywhere. They happen at home, they happen in family, they happen in community, they happen at work, they happen in your teams, they happen in your businesses, in your companies, in your profession. And yes, they're big in the networking world because most people don't possess the networking skills to convert to monetize. So I just wanted to bring that to you. I'm here. I'm here if you want to monetize your network. I'm here if you want to learn and build that skill. But most of all, I want you to think about it. The next time you're at a networking event, are you afraid to go up to somebody and approach? Are you focusing so much on the pitch that you're forgetting that you don't need to pitch? You don't need to pitch. Most people think, oh, I've got 2 minutes for a speed pitch. You don't need to pitch. You just need to be very sure what your value is, what the glorified action is that you do, and then later establish that content and start the dialogue. Are you afraid that you're going to be misperceived? Do you feel awkward? Did you stutter if the microphone comes to you because you get the butterfly in your stomach? You know that networking is powerful. You know that networking can convert. Are you afraid that you're just one of another, a commodity, because other people do the same thing that you do? Nobody does the same thing that you do. But you got to let them know. So, Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, glad to be here. To all of you out there, let me know. Networking hard for you? Let me help you get past it. Make some money for bold, bankable growth. I'm Debbie Foreman, and I'm out of here.